Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Capitalist Investor. As always, you have me, Diamond Hands D, and running a two-man crew today with Tony Volatility. What's going on, man?
What's up, baby? How you doing?
It's always exciting times here in the United States of America, I'll tell you that.
we are the center of the world right now.
So we got some volatile market days there in the last couple of days. So we record this on Wednesday as always. So saw the volatile day on Tuesday.
I don't even think it's been Tuesday. It's been a good 2 weeks now,
yep,
at least, right? So as things that we'll talk about is like the recent volatility, is it warranted? And then also, if we get to it, the grab your popcorn event of Donald Trump speaking to Congress last night.
Yep, for sure. That was something.
That was some funny things were mentioned. But to kind of bring this to the forefront, a correction starts at 10% from the last high, right? And right now we're about 5% down from the high, so we're not even, we're halfway to correction territory. Is this warranted? Should we be scared? And could things go lower?
Yep.
So one of our research firms sent out a piece yesterday on March 4th, kind of explaining, hey, if we're gonna drop, there's a lot more to drop. Yep. So, but there's the catalysts out there that we'll talk about that can drive the market forward. But we need to understand that it's okay for the market to breathe. It's not a linear line straight up. It doesn't go from the bottom left of the page to the top right of the page all the time. Right. So the market's down about 5% from its all-time high, reached back on February 19th. So, in the last 3 weeks, we've lost 5%.
Yep.
I'd like to remind everybody that the market's up, the S&P 500's up 20% the last 2 years. Right. And heck, we were up 20% last year with a major, issue, right? Like there was corrections and stuff. So it's a normal occurrence. There's a correction in both those 20-year or those two 20%, those two 20% years. But, I found this kind of fascinating. It's kind of hard to understand, but the average stock right now. So let's talk about some of the things that are moving and shaking and what our research firm looks at, because they take a look at history to see where we might be pointed. So one of the things that they pointed out was the average stock is down 17% from its 52-week high. That's the average, right? The median is somewhere around 12 or 13. But I kind of looked at the chart that they provided, and the last trade war was somewhere around 2016, plus or minus. We approached about the average stock was down about 25%. So we're 3% higher than the average, and we're still quite far away, well over 8% away from. I guess almost a 2 standard deviation and where we were with the last trade war. Yep. So if the concern and volatility continues, and we still feel that there's some type of economic downturn or slowdown is what I'll call it too, there's still room for the market to fall. Right? Unfortunately. And I think the Fed even came out and is already recasting numbers for GDP in Q1 of 25 of being negative. It takes 2 quarters of negative to be a recession. Right. And I think we even did that in the Biden era, but no one really talked about it because it was so quick. It was such a blip because of how things are just moving and shaking. And guess what? Donald Trump loves to rattle the cage, right? But some of the tailwinds out there are earnings growth is still, supposed to be above, growth of over 10% this year. Yep. And historically, unemployment is low. And it's very difficult to have a true recession when unemployment is low and earnings growth is still above 10%. Can we enter to negative? Sure, but does it really? The economy has been actually pretty good and hot the last few years, even with all this inflation. But maybe the constant inflation is finally catching up. I think I saw something where, the average consumer is out of their their pandemic money, their war chest.
Right.
Everyone spent all their money. Yep. So no one's got any money and they're borrowing credit now, right? So there's a few things, right? So I found something, Derek. So tell me what you think about this. So let me kind of break this down. I found this a fascinating thing on.
Does that say conspiracy at the top?
It does, but it's not. But it's just somebody's view of the game. I'll call it. I'll call it a game. The game that Donald Trump is playing right now.
Yep.
So follow with me here. And I call it a check conspiracy. That's funny. It's not a conspiracy. It's funny. All right, we're moving on. It's a chess, checkers versus chess type of mentality here. And it started off the topic on this Twitter, /X commentary was, why Donald Trump actually wants the market to crash. And I'm like, that's fascinating. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to sum this up. So we have $7 trillion of debt to refi, and it's going to go from virtually zero, between 0 and 1% to 4+%.
Right.
It's a lot of money, and just interest. Mm-hmm. And the article continues to talk about, well, if the market is quote unquote crashing, I don't want to say it's like going to drop 40%, but like enters correction, nears bear market territory. If the market shows weakness in the short term, interest rates could be lowered. The Fed will say, hey, we have a weakening economy. We're going to, continue to lower, and cut rates. And and catalysts like tariffs rattle the cage, right? Mm-hmm. The Doge coming in and saying, hey, we're chopping jobs on the government level, right? Like, it's a perception, right? The tariffs have been in force they just came into force and the market's down 5% leading into it. So, and Donald Trump already came out, like, I think the Commerce Secretary came out and said, like, hey, I know we just started this Commerce off, but Trump's open for negotiations. Like, it's a tactic. It depends on the view that you look at. Like, I think he did this last time, and it was a short-lived tariff game. Now, again, the catalyst of firing people, fining money, tariffs, all this stuff, and the Fed will come in and lower the interest rates. And with all of this volatility comes people that are concerned about the market. Where are they going to go? They're going to flood to bonds, the safe haven, quote unquote, right? And as people buy bonds, theoretically, the interest rate should come down, right? Mm-hmm. And if the interest rates come down, then we can refinance our debt at a lower level. And once we stamp that lower level of debt interest, then we can ramp things back up, get rid of tariffs, and get this party moving again. Right? So it could be a very short-term problem for the market, for the stock market, retirement money, things like that. And it's just, I don't know, like that was the theme of how it was broken down. This is why he's trying to rattle the cage, shake up the market, get it off its all-time high, get everyone scared, move them to bonds. The Fed lowers rates, and lower rates, we finance debt cheaper, and the housing market's dead, essentially. Like, it's just historically is not moving. Right, it's moving, but not really. And that's why, because a 30-year mortgage is what, 6.5% to 7%.
Right.
If we can get that back to around 5%, you will see economic movement in houses. Right, like houses will start selling and create that. And that's a huge catalyst, a big part of our economy. Yeah. So, all right, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I think I think that theory makes a lot of sense because if you just look at how they're going about doing things, basically between Trump and Musk with the Doge, they're just trying to. They're looking at it almost like from a pure business standpoint. Like, hey, we are way out of whack with what we're bringing in versus what we're spending. We need to write our budget,
Yep.
And now interest, unfortunately, is a huge part of the budget of this country, just paying off our interests. So from that standpoint, it definitely does make sense. I think what you're seeing is really just a continuation of things that we've been talking about here for a long time. There's going to be some pain to fix things. You can either fix things or not, right? So I actually got a couple phone calls. Had some good chats with clients yesterday, but it's. All these problems aren't just going to get solved in like a week, right? We've been offshoring all of our production since you and I were kids, right?
Right.
This is a generation-long problem that we're trying to fix because if it doesn't get fixed, I think this is the key point. If it doesn't get fixed, it may never get fixed.
Right.
If we just keep running astronomical deficits forever, it's eventually going to break.
Well, like the trade deficit is
Yes.
crazy, and I understand that like tariffs are inflationary, but it's usually going to be on like big items,
Right.
So it's going to force us to start creating things in America again, built in America. When's the last time you saw that stamp on anything? Yep. Like, bring the cars back. Like, they had somebody on TV yesterday. He was an auto dealer, right? And he looked terrified. He goes, "This truck sitting here just went up 25%. It was 60 grand. Now it's 75 or 80 grand now. Who's going to buy that?" And he goes, "That's a good question. Probably nobody in the short term. But if things can be concessioned and then the tariffs stop, then the truck it should come back down."
Yep,
right?
for sure.
But why isn't a Dodge Ram or a Ram truck built in the United States?
Yeah, or assembled here.
Right. Something.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Or like, but then you got the parts, like there's this. I understand things need to be done economically. I think it would be hard to bring every job back to America because we overcompensate our workers. We're not cheap.
Exactly.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's very simple to look at because Europe is just like 5 to 10 years ahead of where we were headed, right? And that's, the social aspect of things and immigration, that's one thing. But when J.D. Vance went to, I forgot where he went, but delivered that speech about free speech, basically scolding Europe for, restricting free speech. But what he also said in that speech was basically telling Germany that they don't produce anything in their country anymore. And if they just continue to offshore everything that they do, they're not going to have an identity left, Obviously, you think of a couple things when you think of Germany, but, one of the first things you think of economically is, just like over-the-top engineers,
yes.
right? They build amazing cars, and everything they do is,
engineered
perfectly, basically.
Right.
And they're losing that because they don't build anything anymore. And that is what has happened to us already. So, yeah, these tariffs are going to be painful, but we have to at least try.
Yeah.
This is we can't tax our way out of this spending.
Right.
The only way to fix what we have going on here is to increase our production as a country.
Do our American cars drove in any country other than ours?
No,
no one buys our stuff because it's tariffed, right? We're blocked from selling our stuff.
Yes. But they can sell
it to us and not be so I get the game. I understand it. It is painful. I was considering getting a new car, and now I got to put it on pause because I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
But I'm thinking that this is for the better, the greater good, right? I believe that. And the funny thing is I keep on seeing on Twitter and Facebook, a lot of my Democratic friends, they keep on posting that one video from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right? Where you have Ben Stein, that's the actor's name, right? But he's that boring teacher talking voodoo economics. Yeah, Bueller. Right? That whole scene, right? But he's there during his conversation, he's like, back in the Depression era, like the United States raised tariffs, thinking that would help hoist us out of a depression, and what it really did was dig us into a deeper depression, right? Well, but they were already in a depression, right? Yeah, I get it. You're trying something to make things better, but I don't think these tariffs that are being rolled out right now are meant to be long term. They're negotiating tactics. I hope that's what it is.
They could already be over by the time this gets to air.
It could because they're already talking on Wednesday and Thursday where Ukraine's going to roll over and accept the mineral deal, and
Mexico.
That maybe a war in Europe will be over. Maybe it'll escalate. Who knows? The tariff war could be, over with Mexico and Canada. Who knows about China? But like, there's all this stuff, and then you also have just other stuff outside of tariffs. Like, again, look how much air has come out of AI mega tech companies, and it's all about DeepSeek and doing something cheaper, more efficient, and with less energy. I mean, a lot of things can disrupt what is happening right now. So again, that when it comes to like your portfolio management, things like that, active management today, now that Trump's back in office, because things are going to move so quickly, is very important. The dude's on the mic every day saying something. There was no volatility during the Biden administration because the dude was on vacation 65% of the time. Right? But this guy is finding the microphone nearly every day, and it's hard to keep up. And you better, because something could be said, and the next thing you know, your portfolio could be going in a different direction.
And that's he doesn't have much of a choice. That's what he has realized, Trump, that is, that if this goes through the normal snail's pace government process of changing things, he's going to be out of office before anything actually happens. So that this strategy of trying to do everything all at once is really the only play that he has to make an actual change in things. And we can shift maybe to the speech from last night, but
So just to close out on what's happening right now, I believe it's just too early to tell. I think it's normal to go backwards, from all-time highs. Like it's normal. Like letting off steam in the market is normal. I don't think there's anything fundamentally broken yet. But nothing's making me, there's a lot of anxiety, but I'm not overly concerned at this moment.
But just to put a bow on it, a lot of the air is coming, like you said, coming out of those, Magnificent Seven stocks. Like they were just pumped up just so much. This is kind of a natural part of things. So, things pump up, the top gets blown off, as they say, and then prices get back to equilibrium. That's what happens in the market anytime anyone rattles any cages, things like that. So, like you said, active management is going to be important, but at the same point in time, we don't want to be making any rash decisions, any panic selling, any timing the market, especially now, because I think panic selling now is one thing. Finding a spot for re-entry, that is the real tricky part, right? So, have a plan with your investments and stick to it, because this is going to continue for a while. I would say until June, probably. I'm thinking like the first half of the year, we're going to have some volatility like this.
Agree.
Mark Tepper here from SWP Investment Management. It's time to elevate your portfolio with the SWP Growth and Income ETF. A diversified basket of high-quality growth companies that pay dividends, SWP stands out from the pack because total returns matter. Don't just invest, thrive with SWP. Visit InvestSWP.com for more information. Disclosures apply.
So let's, with all of that said, let's transition to the circus that we saw last night.
Yeah. And this was just kind of his first speech, Trump's first speech in front of Congress last night.
I don't know. I guess you can just call that anytime you want if you're the president.
I don't know, but maybe they happened in the past and they just weren't as publicized because no one cared. Everyone cares when this dude when Trump gets on the mic, people stop what they're doing, whether you like them or you hate them. Actually, everyone's listening because it's either you like them or you don't, or you don't. You're not like in the middle, like I kind of I'm like he's obnoxious over here, and I can understand what he's saying over there. Like I get it, right? But he dude. So here's all right. So he called Warren Pocahontas in front of everybody. Jesus. People were getting kicked out. Other representatives were being kicked out. He asked hey, why did you start yelling and get kicked out? Well, because they're going to slash Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. I had to go look. I'm like, where is this? Where didn't Trump say he wants to make Social Security tax free?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Okay, just checking. And then I looked up. I'm like, okay, was there something buried in Medicaid, right? Or Medicare, and they're gonna defund the poor people. And what I read, and again, it was hard to find something, so I can't tell if it's not being axed. So what I saw was the pre-pandemic or the immediate post-pandemic Medicaid program, where it was just an auto renewal, is being stopped.
Right.
So you got to reapply again. It doesn't mean you're being shut off. If you are a needy person and of need of Medicaid, guess what? And from what I read, you're not going to lose it. It's just being reevaluated.
Yep.
Because again, we have people on Social Security that are 160 years old. Did you see that? Or Trump's like, hey, man,
130,000 people over 160 years old currently receiving Social
Security. Who's getting that money? Where's I want to know. I'm dying to know where that money is being dropped. Where are those checks going? That's my question.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he turns over to Kenny and he's like, man, you just been in office for you just got appointed 2 weeks ago, man, and we're healthier than we thought, man. This is great. Just cracking jokes, but that's real. Where is this money going?
Yeah, I mean, Trump and Elon were on that Fox Business interview with, was it Hannity maybe? But they clearly stated their position. So if you want to call them liars, that's fine. But they said, hey, we're looking at this stuff for fraud and waste and abuse. We're not looking to reduce anyone's benefits.
Correct.
And
if you're a real person in real need, guess what? You're going to continue to get it.
Yep.
The Dems were completely quiet on nearly everything except if they were standing up and yelling.
Yeah, so the one thing that they did not applaud, there's many really bad things, but no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security. So you got a guy getting kicked out because he says Trump's going to eliminate all these entitlements, but you don't want to eliminate the taxes for everyone else?
Right.
For Social Security, right? What is it, 2/3 of people on Social Security, that's basically their only income?
They need that.
Yeah. And eliminating taxes on Social Security it's brilliant. It's eliminating tax. It's giving money to people who need it, right? Yeah. It's a great idea.
And if we eliminate the 100,000 people that are getting it that aren't alive anymore, guess what? The trust fund doesn't get depleted as fast, and maybe we can afford not to tax it.
Yep.
Right. Couple. I'll talk about one other thing that I thought was funny, and then there was something that was actually, that was rolled out that I thought was really cool. But the pre-Trump speech by Warren and some of these other Democrats, they all gave the same speech before, on Twitter, they videotaped themselves, and if you watch them, they all said the same damn thing. They had the same speech.
It's the same script 22 times.
In my opinion, I don't know who's really leading the Democratic Party right now. I don't know who their leader is. So who wrote that script for them? and passed it out and said, "Hey guys, why don't you get on social media?" And who wrote that?
Well, if you have the answer to that question, Elon Musk will buy you a Cybertruck.
Okay.
That's a real thing. I saw.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. He asked the same question you did.
Okay.
He said he will buy you a.
Does that mean I'm like a genius? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
No.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, if you don't know what we're referring to, it's like a pre-recorded speech that the 24 Democratic leaders they said the same exact thing word for word.
Yeah. Hey, before Trump gets out there, I want you to keep in mind blah 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 blah. Right.
Yeah.
That's what that was. Right. I'm like, who gave him that message? Like, who from what tower did that come from? Right. But that just blows my mind.
I think we've been pretty clear here for a very long time now. We're not like at and if you are, that's fine. But we're not like MAGA Republicans. Like we're just me personally. I'm really just for small government. That's really all I want. That's really been my main point for my entire adult life. And you see it every day on CNN with that guy, Scott. I forgot his last name. But he basically said the other day, it's like you guys are not going to convince me that this is not one of the most popular presidents that we've ever seen. And you saw that last night with the numbers. A CBS poll had basically a 76% favorability rating on that speech.
Yeah.
So that's just mainstream news. 76%. The CNN poll was 67% positive.
That people like what
approved
he had to say
of the speech.
Yeah.
We're not gonna there's a lot of 80-20 issues that these Democrats are digging their heels in on, and you saw that last night. You saw them sitting on their hands when everyone else was cheering. It's going to be a problem for them because they're not making sense, and people are starting to call them out.
It's just unfortunate that it's so divided.
Yep.
It's really unfortunate. I don't know. So one of the positive things, we'll end on this now. One of the positive things, I think, Trump, gave an honorary Secret Service to that little
cool.
boy who had cancer, and that was really warm. I was awesome. The look on that little boy's face. He's already dressed up like a secret. He had
his ID or whatever.
Yeah, when I was sick when I was younger, man. Like stuff like that, can really, make a negative situation positive. Even if it's a little bit on the short term side, right? Yeah. But that was a heck of that was awesome. I thought that was really special. So, and then a random thing. It wasn't last night, but then I also saw there's this barber shop in Philadelphia that's paying children. I think 7 or 8, under the ages of 7 and 8 to come in. They're going to pay them $3 to read the barber a book while they get their hair cut. Yeah, I saw that. Those are the things I wish we can focus on, but they get lost in the weeds because there's just so much twisted. Yeah. Everyone's just so it's divided, man. It stinks.
Well, I think it's becoming less divided, honestly.
I hope.
I was trying to find something there on the timeline, but I just saw Bernie Sanders basically ranting about how there actually isn't anyone who's 160 receiving Social Security. It's I think that's kind of the point. Someone else is getting that money.
Correct.
That's what we all want to know. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. The Social Security system is supposed to be bankrupt by 2035, 2036 now. Yeah. We don't want that to happen.
Correct.
So it's a pretty simple thing. If you're against finding fraud in the Social Security, how is anyone supporting that? How are you getting support by rallying support for taxing Social Security, taxing tips? The other presidential candidate copied Trump on those topics, and now we're not clapping for him.
I just hope that the Social Security thing isn't just some random statement that has no merit. I hope it's not true. But the fact that they brought it up and said it's happening, I hope it is true.
Yep.
So that it can be fixed. Because if they do fix it, man, all the money that can be saved. Like, again, in the fraud that could be happening. I hope it's real, but I'm pissed that it happened. But I hope that that's not made up.
Yep.
It's that, again, that's me saying, like, I'm afraid to understand. I'm afraid to believe everything I hear, see, and read. Right. But that dude's Elon Musk is on a serious pedestal, speaking with the microphone to everybody.
Yep.
So I can't see him just making shit up. Yeah.
I don't know how he has time to do anything else besides tweet. The guy tweets all day long about everything.
And he's launching rockets, making cars, and tweeting all day.
It's crazy.
I get it, man. I get it. All right. Did he clone himself yet?
That's one explanation, I guess. It's something.
All right, let's close it down.
All right. Well, thanks for listening this week. If you guys have any questions, comments, show ideas, hit us up at info@swpconnect.com, and we'll talk to you next week.
The opinions expressed in the podcast are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any investment, legal, financial, or tax strategy. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. Please consult a qualified professional about your individual needs.